I'm Maya, 29 years old, and in exactly 47 minutes, my sister Emma's rehearsal dinner is about to become the most expensive mistake of her life. While she's downstairs in her $3,000 rehearsal dress surrounded by 200 guests celebrating her engagement to Derek Chen, I'm standing in front of the mirror in the presidential suite of the Grand Meridian Hotel, a suite I personally own through my shell company. My family thinks I'm a struggling temp worker who can barely afford rent. What they don't know is that in 23 minutes I'll be live streaming from the Global Environmental Innovation Summit, revealing myself as the founder and CEO of Ecosphere, the $5 billion company that's about to destroy Derek's stolen empire and change our family forever. Derek Chen stole my life's work 3 years ago, gaslit me into believing I wasn't smart enough for business, then had the audacity to propose to my sister with the profits from my stolen idea. Tonight, 500 miles away from this rehearsal dinner, I'm about to accept the Environmental Innovation Award for the very concept he claimed as his own. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, the one they wrote off while celebrating everyone else's mediocrity, smash that like button and comment below. Because what happens next proves that the person they underestimate most is often planning the biggest comeback of all. Maya, you need to understand something about the business world, Derek said, not even looking up from his laptop as he sat in my apartment, using my research spread across my coffee table. Ideas are worthless. Execution is everything. And honestly, you're just too emotional to handle the pressure of real entrepreneurship. I stared at him, my boyfriend of 2 years, the man I'd trusted with every detail of my revolutionary app concept, Ecosphere, a comprehensive platform for tracking carbon footprints, connecting users with sustainable businesses, and gamifying environmental choices. For 18 months, I'd shared everything: market research, user interface designs, financial projections, even the proprietary algorithms I'd spent years developing. What are you saying exactly? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Derek finally looked up, his expression a mixture of pity and condescension that I'd somehow never noticed before. I'm saying that I've launched Green Life. It went live yesterday. Same core concept as your little hobby project, but with actual business strategy behind it. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Look, Maya, I did you a favor. He gestured at his laptop screen, where I could see my interface, my color scheme, my entire user experience flow, just with different branding. You were never going to get this off the ground. You don't have connections, you don't understand investor relations, and frankly, you don't have the killer instinct for this industry. But I do. I grabbed his laptop, scrolling through what was unmistakably my work with minor cosmetic changes. The carbon tracking algorithms, mine. The gamification structure, mine. The business model, mine. Even the marketing copy sounded like my pitch presentations. Derek, this is theft. This is my intellectual property. He laughed. Actually laughed. Intellectual property? Maya, we're dating. We share everything. Besides, can you prove you came up with these ideas first? Do you have timestamps, legal documentation, provisional patents? His smile was cruel now. Because I do. My hands shook as I continued scrolling. He'd been filing provisional patents based on our conversations. Every late-night brainstorming session where I'd shared breakthroughs, every technical challenge I'd solved, and excitedly explained to him, he'd been documenting it all as his own innovations. You've been planning this for months. I've been saving you from inevitable failure, he corrected. Maya, look at yourself. You're 26, living in a studio apartment, working part-time at a coffee shop while chasing pipe dreams. I'm 28, I have an MBA from Wharton, and I actually understand how to scale a business. This app needed someone serious behind it. The casual cruelty in his voice was worse than shouting would have been. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a business decision gone wrong. This was calculated destruction of everything I'd worked for. Get out, my voice was barely audible. Maya, don't be childish about this. We can still date. I'm not trying to hurt you personally, but business is business, and you're just not cut out for. Get out! I screamed, hurling his laptop toward the door. Get out of my apartment and never speak to me again. After Derek left, I spent 3 hours on the floor of my shower, crying until I couldn't produce any more tears. Then I did what any rational person would do. I called my family. Dad, Derek stole my business idea. He took everything I've been working on for 2 years and launched it as his own company. There was a long pause on the phone. Maya, honey, are you sure you're not just upset because Derek's more business savvy than you thought? Dad, he literally took my code, my business plan, my marketing strategy. Well, maybe you should have been more careful about who you shared your ideas with, Dad interrupted. This is exactly why I keep telling you that the business world isn't a game. Maybe this is a learning experience. A learning experience. My life's work being stolen was a learning experience. I tried my mother next. Mom, Derek stole my app idea and launched it as his own company. I need help figuring out what legal options I have. Oh, sweetie, are you sure you're not just being a little paranoid? Derek's always seemed so supportive of your little projects. Maybe he just had a similar idea? Great minds think alike, you know. My little projects, 2 years of intensive work, research, and development were little projects. But the conversation with Emma was the one that shattered me completely. Emma, I need you to know what Derek did. He stole my business idea and… Maya, stop! Emma's voice was sharp with irritation. Derek told me you might react this way. He said you've been struggling with seeing him succeed where you've failed, and that you might try to claim credit for his accomplishments. He told you I would react this way? He's been worried about you, Maya. He thinks you might need professional help dealing with your jealousy issues. Honestly, I'm starting to agree with him. The world tilted sideways. Emma, he's been planning this conversation too. He knew I'd call you, so he preemptively made me sound crazy. Or maybe you're actually acting crazy, Emma said coldly. Maya, you can't just claim credit for other people's success because you're frustrated with your own lack of achievement. Derek is brilliant, ambitious, and successful. You work at a coffee shop and live in a studio apartment. Which one of you is more likely to have actually developed a sophisticated business concept? That question hung in the air like poison gas. My own sister, the person who'd known me my entire life, who'd seen me win statewide competitions, graduate summa cum laude, score in the 99th percentile on every standardized test I'd ever taken, believed that Derek was inherently more capable than me, simply because he was a man with an MBA, and I was a woman still finding myself. Emma, I can show you my original files, my code repository, my business plans with timestamps. Maya, I don't want to see your conspiracy theories. I want you to get help. That night, as I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by printed copies of my original work, code comments dated 18 months before Derek's launch, business plans with my handwriting in the margins, financial projections in my personal spreadsheet style, I realized something that would change the trajectory of my entire life. My family didn't just doubt my abilities. They fundamentally believed I was inferior to Derek, despite knowing me for 26 years and knowing him for less than 2. This wasn't about evidence or proof or logic. This was about their deeply held conviction that I was the family failure, and Derek was the kind of successful man I should be grateful to orbit around. I was still reeling from Derek's theft and my family's dismissal when Emma called with news that sent me into a complete psychological tailspin. Maya, I have something to tell you, and I want you to promise you'll be happy for me. Derek and I have been spending a lot of time together since you two broke up. He's been so supportive during this difficult period, helping me understand what you're going through. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? We're dating, Maya, and before you react badly, I want you to know that Derek was hesitant because he cares about your feelings. But we have a real connection, and we can't deny our feelings just because you're struggling to move on. The room started spinning. Emma, he stole my… Maya, stop. Just stop with the conspiracy theories. Derek explained everything to me. He said you've been obsessing over his success, trying to claim credit for his work, and now you're trying to sabotage his happiness. I won't let you do that. I'm trying to sabotage his happiness? Derek is the best thing that's ever happened to our family, Emma continued. He's successful, ambitious, kind, and he genuinely cares about all of us. Mom and Dad adore him. He's going to be family now, Maya, and you need to accept that. I couldn't speak. Derek hadn't just stolen my work, he'd stolen my life, my family, my future. He'd positioned himself as the victim of my jealousy while systematically destroying everything I'd built. Maya, say something, tell me you're happy for us. How long? I whispered. How long what? How long have you been planning this? How long have you and Derek been talking about me behind my back, deciding that he's the valuable one and I'm the problem? Emma's silence told me everything I needed to know. We never planned this, Maya. It just happened. Derek and I started talking because he was worried about your mental state after the breakup. He felt guilty about having to end things with you, and I was trying to help him understand that it wasn't his fault that you couldn't handle dating someone more successful than you. Derek had convinced my own sister that he had broken up with me, that I couldn't handle dating someone more successful with my own stolen work. Emma, I'm going to hang up now. And I need you to know that this isn't about Derek choosing you over me. This is about you choosing Derek over your own sister based on lies he told you about who I am. Maya, don't be dramatic. I hung up and immediately blocked Derek's number, Emma's number, and my parents' numbers. Then I sat in my apartment for 3 days, eating nothing, drinking only water, staring at the wall and trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. Derek hadn't just stolen my business idea. He'd stolen my identity as a capable person, convinced my family that I was delusional and jealous, positioned himself as the successful entrepreneur I'd never be, and then replaced me in my own family structure. He'd erased me so completely that my own sister believed I was the villain in this story. That's when I decided that Derek Chen had made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd systematically destroyed Maya Mitchell, the dreamer. Now he was going to meet Maya Mitchell, the strategist, and she was going to bury him so completely that his theft would become a business school case study in catastrophic hubris. I was crying into my third espresso at a coffee shop near NYU when a woman slid into the seat across from me without invitation. She was maybe 45, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that comes from winning wars other people didn't even know were being fought. "You're Maya Mitchell," she said. It wasn't a question. I looked up, mascara probably streaked down my face. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "I'm Priya Sharma. I've been watching Derek Chen's launch very carefully, and I have some questions about the similarities between Green Life and some earlier work I've seen." My blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're talking about." Priya smiled, not kindly, but with the expression of a predator who'd found worthy prey. "Maya, I'm the founder and managing partner of Sharma Ventures. We're a $500 million fund that specializes in disruptive technology, particularly in the environmental sector. I've been tracking sustainable technology innovation for 15 years. She pulled out her phone and opened what I immediately recognized as my original Ecosphere mock-ups, screenshots I'd posted in an environmental entrepreneur's Facebook group 18 months earlier. These designs were posted long before Green Life's launch. The carbon tracking methodology described in these posts is significantly more sophisticated than what Green Life actually implemented. The user experience flow is nearly identical to Green Life's interface, but these posts predate Derek's launch by 14 months. I stared at my own work reflected back at me. How did you... I screenshot promising concepts when I see them. It's part of my job to identify innovation before it reaches market. When Green Life launched, I immediately recognized these designs, but I noticed something interesting. The implementation was actually dumbed down from the original concept. Priya leaned forward. "Maya, Green Life is a simplified version of what you designed. Derek took your idea but lacked the technical sophistication to execute your complete vision. What he built is maybe 30% of what you originally conceived." For the first time in 6 months, I felt something other than crushing despair. "You believe me." "I don't just believe you. I have evidence, and more importantly, I have a proposition." Priya opened her laptop and showed me a detailed analysis she'd compiled, side-by-side comparisons of my original posts and Derek's implementation, timestamp evidence, even a technical assessment of the features Derek had failed to include. Men have been stealing women's ideas and calling it innovation for centuries, she said bluntly. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I tried to get lawyers involved. They said it would be nearly impossible to prove, and even if I could, Derek had filed provisional patents based on our conversations. Legal battles are expensive, time-consuming, and uncertain, Priya agreed. But there's another option. What if we built something so much better than Derek's version that his app looks like a proof of concept? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, we build the real ecosphere. The complete version you originally envisioned, with all the features Derek was too limited to understand. We build it in secret, we build it right, and we launch it strategically for maximum impact. Priya slid a business card across the table. I'm offering to be your primary investor and strategic partner. We build your complete vision, we make Derek's version obsolete, and we make you very, very wealthy in the process. Why would you do this? Priya's smile turned sharp. Because 12 years ago, my male business partner tried to push me out of our startup the day before our IPO. He said I was too emotional to handle the pressure of being a public company executive. He offered to buy out my shares for a fraction of their value. What did you do? I refused his buyout, took control of the board, fired him the day after we went public, and used the proceeds to build Sharma Ventures. That company he said I was too emotional to run. It's worth $2.8 billion now. Priya leaned back in her chair. Maya, I'm very good at turning stolen ideas into billion-dollar revenge stories. The question is, are you ready to stop being a victim and start being a predator? I looked at my reflection in her laptop screen. Mascara streaked, defeated, 6 months into the worst period of my life. Then I looked at Priya, immaculate, powerful, radiating the kind of confidence that comes from turning catastrophic betrayal into extraordinary success. What's the timeline? 2 years to build it right, another year to launch strategically. 3 years from today, Derek Chen won't just be obsolete. He'll be a cautionary tale. We shook hands across the table. I felt like I was making a deal with a beautiful devil. But after 6 months of powerlessness, the opportunity for calculated revenge felt like oxygen. The next 2 years were the most schizophrenic period of my life. To my family, who'd eventually started speaking to me again after Emma and Derek got engaged, I was Maya, the perpetual failure. To the outside world, I was Maya, the struggling temp worker, bouncing between administrative jobs, still figuring out my life at 28. In reality, I was working 18-hour days building the most sophisticated environmental technology platform the world had ever seen. Priya's initial investment was $2 million, enough to hire a small team of elite developers and rent a nondescript office space in Brooklyn. We operated under the name Sustainable Systems Solutions, boring enough that no one would look twice at our business filings. My first hire was Marcus Kim, Derek's former lead developer who'd quit Greenlife in frustration 8 months after launch. Derek couldn't understand half the features you're proposing, Marcus told me during his interview. He kept saying advanced functionality was too complicated for average users. He literally told me to dumb down the carbon tracking algorithms because they made him feel stupid. Marcus had kept detailed notes about Derek's technical limitations, not out of malice, but because he'd been trying to educate Derek about the possibilities Derek was refusing to explore. Maya, Derek's version of your app is like building a Ferrari and only using it to deliver pizza. He took your concept and removed everything innovative about it. My second hire was Sarah Chen, no relation to Derek, a former Tesla engineer who developed carbon tracking systems for automotive manufacturers. Sarah took one look at my original designs and said, "This is what sustainable technology should look like. Why isn't this already in the market?" Because the man who stole it from me wasn't smart enough to build it properly. Sarah smiled. Well, lucky for you, I am. We built my team like a fantasy football draft, recruiting the best talent from companies that had undervalued them. Jin Park, an AI specialist from Seoul whose algorithms could predict consumer behavior with 94% accuracy, but whose previous employer had relegated him to basic data analysis. Maria Santos, a supply chain expert from Sao Paulo who understood global environmental impact tracking better than anyone in North America, but who'd been passed over for promotion 6 times in favor of less qualified men. Every person I hired had been underestimated by their previous employers. We weren't just building a company, we were building an army of overlooked talent, led by an overlooked founder. Maintaining my cover as a struggling temp worker while secretly running a technology company required Oscar-level acting skills. Family dinners became elaborate performances. "How's the job search going, Maya?" Mom would ask with poorly concealed pity while Emma talked about wedding venues. "Still looking for the right opportunity," I'd reply, while mentally reviewing the Series A funding presentation I'd be giving to Google Ventures the following Tuesday. The cognitive dissonance was surreal. I'd spend mornings fielding calls from Fortune 500 companies wanting to partner with sustainable systems solutions, then show up to family gatherings pretending I was too broke to afford a decent bottle of wine. Derek's presence at family events became a masterclass in self-control. Watching him charm my parents while knowing he'd built his success on my stolen work was psychological torture, but it was also fuel for my determination. At Emma's bridal shower, Derek pulled me aside for what he probably thought was a magnanimous gesture. "Maya, I hope there are no hard feelings about the business situation. You understand that entrepreneurship is just competitive by nature, right? I hope you find your own path to success." I smiled and congratulated him on Greenlife's growth, knowing that in 18 months, his success would become the most expensive mistake of his life. While Derek's Greenlife was a simple point-based app where users manually logged eco-friendly actions, we were building something revolutionary. The real ecosphere integrated with smart home systems, wearable devices, electric vehicles, and financial institutions to track users' complete environmental footprint automatically. AI algorithms analyzed purchasing patterns, energy consumption, transportation choices, and lifestyle data to provide real-time carbon impact assessments and personalized recommendations for improvement. Where Greenlife offered generic tips like use less water, Ecosphere provided specific, actionable insights. Based on your spending patterns, switching to Brand X detergent would reduce your monthly carbon footprint by 2.3 tons and save you $47 annually. We built blockchain verification systems that allowed businesses to prove their sustainability claims. We created social networking features that connected eco-conscious communities globally. We developed corporate integration tools that helped companies track and reduce their environmental impact across entire supply chains. Derek's app was a calculator. We were building an ecosystem. Priya's connections opened doors I never could have accessed as a temp worker. By month 6, we were in conversations with some of the most prestigious investors in Silicon Valley, all operating under strict NDAs. "This is what environmental technology should have looked like from the beginning," said the managing partner at Kleiner Perkins during our Series A presentation. "How is this not already dominating the market?" "Because the person who originally conceived it had his idea stolen by someone who lacked the vision to execute it properly," Priya replied smoothly. "We're correcting that market failure." Our Series A round closed at $15 million. Our Series B round, 12 months later, closed at $50 million. By the time Emma's wedding planning was in full swing, Ecosphere had raised $75 million from investors who believed we were building the future of sustainable technology. Derek's Greenlife had raised $8 million in the same time period, and according to Alex, Derek's brother, who'd become my secret source of intelligence, they were burning through cash faster than they were acquiring users. Alex Chen became my unlikely ally 6 months into the project. I'd overheard him at a family gathering talking to someone on the phone. "I know Derek stole that app idea. Maya's way smarter than he is, but no one listens to her because she's a woman and he's got an MBA." When I confronted Alex about what he'd said, he looked terrified. "Please don't tell Derek I said that. He'd kill me." Alex had always resented Derek's golden child status in their family, much like I'd experienced with Emma. "Derek gets credit for everything," Alex told me. "Even when I do well, it's because I'm following his example." Alex agreed to keep me informed about Derek's business struggles, in exchange for a future position at Ecosphere once we went public. Our alliance had to be completely secret. If Derek discovered Alex was helping me, it would destroy both our plan and Alex's relationship with his family. Through Alex, I learned that Derek was panicking. Greenlife's user growth had stalled, retention rates were abysmal, and other companies were releasing sustainability apps with features Greenlife couldn't match. Derek's investors were asking increasingly hard questions about the company's development roadmap and competitive strategy. Derek's been telling investors he has proprietary technology that gives Greenlife a competitive advantage, Alex reported. But he can't explain what that technology actually is because he doesn't understand the code you originally wrote. Derek had painted himself into a corner. He'd built his investor relations on claims about innovations he didn't actually understand, stolen from a woman he'd convinced everyone was too incompetent to have created them. 18 months into development, we soft-launched Ecosphere to a select group of beta users. The response was overwhelming. "This is game-changing," wrote TechCrunch after an exclusive preview. Ecosphere represents the next evolution of environmental technology, from simple tracking to comprehensive lifestyle integration. Environmental activists called it the tool we've been waiting for. Business leaders described it as the first practical solution for corporate sustainability tracking. User adoption rates in beta testing shattered every projection we'd made. One of our beta users was my former college roommate, who raved about the app in our group chat, having no idea her unemployed friend Maya was the founder of the platform she was obsessing over. The contrast with Derek's struggling platform was stark. While Ecosphere beta users were posting screenshots of their detailed environmental impact reports and celebrating carbon footprint reductions, Greenlife users were complaining about the app's basic functionality and lack of meaningful insights. Alex reported that Derek had seen early coverage of Ecosphere and dismissed it as overly complicated tech bro nonsense that normal people will never use. His complete misunderstanding of the market validated every decision I'd made. By month 20, Ecosphere had achieved something Derek's version never could: seamless integration with smart home systems, electric vehicles, and financial institutions. Users could track their complete environmental impact automatically without manual data entry. Major corporations began reaching out about partnerships. Google wanted to integrate Ecosphere data into their sustainability initiatives. Apple was interested in incorporating our algorithms into their health ecosystem. Microsoft wanted to license our corporate tracking tools. All while my family still thought I was struggling to find steady work. The most surreal moment came during Emma's final dress fitting, when she showed me a Wall Street Journal article about emerging green technology companies. Ecosphere was featured prominently. "Maybe you should apply for jobs at companies like this," Emma suggested, completely unaware that she was looking at my life's work. I nearly choked on my coffee. "That's a great idea, I'll look into it." 3 weeks before Emma's wedding, we received the invitation that would change everything. Ecosphere had been selected as the keynote presentation for the Global Environmental Innovation Summit, the most prestigious sustainability conference in the world. The date? Emma's rehearsal dinner. When I told my family I'd have to miss the rehearsal dinner for a work commitment, Mom's response was predictable. "Maya, this is your sister's wedding. Surely your temp job can spare you for one evening?" I smiled and promised I'd try to rearrange my schedule. What I didn't tell them was that in 3 weeks, I'd be accepting the Environmental Innovation Award for the very concept Derek had stolen from me, while they watched on livestream from Emma's rehearsal dinner. The person they'd written off as a failure was about to become one of the most celebrated entrepreneurs in environmental technology. And Derek Chen, the man who'd stolen my work, gaslit me about my abilities, and convinced my family I was delusional, was about to learn what happens when you steal from someone who's smarter, more determined, and infinitely more patient than you ever imagined. I woke up at 5 a.m. in the presidential suite of the Grand Meridian Hotel. Not the modest room my family thought I'd booked, but a $3,000 per night suite that Ecosphere's corporate account paid for without blinking. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the city where my family was preparing for Emma's rehearsal dinner, completely unaware that their failure sister was about to become the most talked-about entrepreneur in environmental technology. My phone showed 47 missed calls from reporters, investors, and tech journalists who'd heard rumors about the evening's announcement. Forbes wanted an exclusive interview. TechCrunch was preparing a feature story. The Wall Street Journal had gotten wind of our IPO plans and was asking for comment. I declined them all. This story would break on my terms, in front of the audience I'd chosen. At 8 a.m., I had breakfast with Priya in my suite while reviewing the final presentation slides. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, scrolling through the social media monitoring dashboard our PR team had prepared. "I've been ready for 3 years. Your family has no idea what's coming." I smiled, looking at the live stream setup our technical team had arranged. They're about to find out who they've been underestimating. By 3 p.m., I was in the green room at the Global Environmental Innovation Summit, 500 miles away from Emma's rehearsal dinner, but connected through technology that would make this the most memorable evening of my family's lives. The summit was being live-streamed on the venue's screens back at the rehearsal dinner, something I'd arranged by telling the hotel staff it was for background ambiance, since the family was interested in environmental issues. They had no idea they were about to watch their family's black sheep accept an international award for innovation. Derek had arrived early to the rehearsal dinner, according to the security camera feeds I was monitoring through the hotel's app. He looked confident, charming the relatives, playing the perfect son-in-law-to-be. He even commented to Emma about the environmental summit playing on the screens, saying, "Good thing Maya's here to learn from real entrepreneurs." The family laughed. I screenshotted the security footage for posterity. At exactly 7 p.m., as my family raised their glasses to toast Derek and Emma's future, I walked onto the stage at the Global Environmental Innovation Summit. The venue erupted in applause. 1,200 of the world's leading environmental scientists, tech executives, and policymakers standing to welcome the founder of the most innovative sustainability platform they'd ever encountered. Back at the rehearsal dinner, I watched through the security feeds as conversation died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Derek's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. The summit announcer's voice carried across both venues. "Please welcome Maya Mitchell, founder and CEO of Ecosphere, this year's recipient of the Global Environmental Innovation Award." Emma's face went white. Dad grabbed Mom's arm so hard she winced. Uncle Bob, who'd dismissed my business plans for years, whispered loudly enough for the hotel microphones to pick up. "Is that really our Maya?" On stage, I began my presentation with a smile that had been 3 years in the making. "Thank you. 3 years ago, someone I trusted told me I was too emotional to handle the pressure of real entrepreneurship. He stole my business idea, gaslit me into believing I wasn't smart enough for success, and then convinced my own family that I was delusional for claiming credit for my own work." The summit audience was riveted. The rehearsal dinner was dead silent. Today, I'm proud to unveil the platform that makes his stolen version look like a proof of concept. I clicked to the first slide, a side-by-side comparison of Derek's Green Life interface and Ecosphere's dashboard. The differences were stunning, like comparing a bicycle to a Tesla. Innovation isn't about stealing ideas, it's about having the vision and capability to execute them brilliantly. Through the security feeds, I watched Derek stand up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "This is impossible," he muttered, but loud enough for half the room to hear. For the next 20 minutes, I demonstrated Ecosphere's capabilities live on stage. Real-time carbon footprint tracking that integrated with smart home systems. AI-powered recommendations that had helped beta users reduce their environmental impact by an average of 34%. Corporate tools that Fortune 500 companies were using to track supply chain sustainability. The summit audience was mesmerized. Tech executives were taking notes. Environmental leaders were nodding in appreciation. At the rehearsal dinner, my family was watching their understanding of reality crumble in real time. I showed integration with Tesla vehicles, Apple Health, Google Home, and major banking institutions. While some platforms require users to manually log every eco-friendly action, I said, with a barely perceptible smile, Ecosphere automatically tracks comprehensive environmental impact across all aspects of users' lives. Derek's face had gone from white to green. His app required manual data entry for everything, like a digital diary from 2005. The future of environmental technology isn't about simple point-based systems, I continued. It's about sophisticated AI that makes sustainable living effortless and rewarding. I demonstrated our blockchain verification system, our social networking features, our corporate partnership tools. Every feature was something Derek had failed to build because he'd lacked the technical sophistication to understand my original vision. Midway through the presentation, I addressed the camera directly, knowing my family was watching. Some of you might recognize elements from other apps in the market. That's because they were copied from my original concept by someone who lacked the vision to build it properly. Derek tried to leave the venue, but Emma grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" she hissed. "Explain to me what's happening right now." "Innovation requires more than theft," I said to the camera. "It requires understanding the complete vision, having the technical skills to execute it, and possessing the integrity to give credit where it's due." The summit moderator asked about funding. I casually mentioned our $75 million in venture capital, our upcoming IPO plans, and our partnerships with major corporations. The gasps from the rehearsal dinner were audible through the live stream audio. "Maya," Dad said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "if your company is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, why are you living in that terrible apartment?" I smiled at the camera. "Dad, I'm not living in a terrible apartment. I own a penthouse in Manhattan and a house in the Hamptons. I've been maintaining a cover story for strategic reasons." Mom grabbed a waiter's arm. "Turn up the volume. I need to hear every word." The summit reached its climax when I was presented with the Global Environmental Innovation Award. As I accepted the crystal trophy, I looked directly into the camera. This award represents more than technological achievement. It represents the triumph of persistence over dismissal, vision over theft, and authentic innovation over intellectual property piracy. The summit audience gave me a standing ovation that lasted 3 minutes. Environmental leaders lined up to shake my hand. Venture capitalists were already approaching Priya about investment opportunities. At the rehearsal dinner, the silence was deafening. "Tomorrow," I announced, "Ecosphere will be available to everyone who believes technology can save our planet. To those who doubted this vision, thank you for the motivation." As the live stream ended, I could see through the security feeds that the rehearsal dinner remained frozen in stunned silence. Derek had quietly slipped out of the venue. Emma was crying. Whether from shock, pride, or embarrassment, I couldn't tell from the camera angle. The moment I stepped off stage, my phone exploded with notifications. Bloomberg, Forbes, TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, every major business publication wanted immediate interviews. But I wasn't there to answer them. I was fielding calls from CEOs, heads of state, and environmental leaders who'd witnessed the most dramatic tech reveal in years. Emma called 47 times in the first hour. I let every call go to voicemail while I spoke with potential partners and investors who'd seen the summit. According to Alex, who'd stayed to witness the aftermath, the rehearsal dinner had dissolved into complete chaos. Dad was demanding to know why I'd kept this secret. Mom was oscillating between pride and confusion about how she'd so completely misunderstood her own daughter's life. Emma had locked herself in the bathroom. Aunt Linda, who'd spent years asking when I'd find stability, was overheard telling relatives, "I always knew Maya was special." The revisionist history had begun before I'd even left the stage. Derek never returned to the rehearsal dinner. Alex found him in the hotel parking lot, frantically making phone calls to his lawyer, his investors, and his board members. Greenlife's stock price had started plummeting as news of Ecosphere spread across social media. By midnight, my story was trending worldwide. #ecosphere, woman entrepreneur, stolen ideas were all viral hashtags. Business journalists were calling it the most dramatic tech reveal of the decade. My mother texted, "Maya, please call us. We had no idea. We're so proud of you." Too little too late, but I appreciated the sentiment. Within 48 hours, the tech world had turned Derek's theft into a case study in catastrophic hubris. Business bloggers were dissecting the timeline, comparing my original social media posts to his launch dates, analyzing the technical sophistication gap between our platforms. Derek's position as CEO of Greenlife was under review, according to insider reports. His board had called an emergency meeting. 3 major investors had already pulled out, citing concerns about intellectual property origins and leadership capability. Emma's wedding, scheduled for the day after the rehearsal dinner, was postponed indefinitely. The bride was devastated, the groom was missing in action, and the family was completely overwhelmed by the media attention surrounding me. I finally called my family at 2 a.m. from my hotel suite, post-celebration dinner with Priya, the summit organizers, and 3 Fortune 500 CEOs who wanted to discuss partnerships. "Why didn't you tell us?" Mom asked, her voice small. "Because you never believed I was capable of success," I replied calmly. "For 3 years, you've treated Derek like a visionary and me like a delusional failure. Even when I had evidence that he'd stolen my work, you chose to believe him over your own daughter." The silence that followed spoke volumes. Dad cleared his throat. "Maya, we owe you the biggest apology in the world." "Yes, you do. But apologies don't undo 3 years of being treated like the family disappointment while watching my intellectual property thief get celebrated as a genius." Emma came on the line, her voice thick with tears. "Maya, did you plan this timing intentionally?" "No," I said honestly. "The summit invitation came with a predetermined date, but I won't apologize for the truth coming out during your rehearsal dinner. Derek stole my life's work and convinced you all that I was crazy for claiming credit for my own innovations. The timing is poetic justice." Over the next 2 weeks, Derek's empire collapsed like a house of cards. Greenlife's board voted to sell their company to Ecosphere for a fraction of its previous valuation. Essentially, Derek's stolen ideas were coming home, but now properly developed and infinitely more valuable. Derek tried to negotiate keeping a small equity stake. My lawyer's response was a firm absolutely not. He'd stolen my idea. He didn't deserve to profit from my success in correcting his butchered implementation. The sale made headlines. Stolen startup sold back to original creator for $12 million after reaching $5 billion valuation. Derek had turned my multi-billion-dollar concept into a $12 million fire sale. Environmental publications ran detailed exposés about the technical differences between Derek's dumbed-down version and my comprehensive platform. Greenlife versus Ecosphere, a case study in vision versus theft, became required reading in business ethics courses at major universities. Derek disappeared from social media entirely. His LinkedIn profile went dark. Alex reported that Derek had moved back in with his parents and was seeing a therapist for what his family was calling career-related anxiety disorder. The hardest conversation was with Emma. She was devastated, embarrassed, and for the first time in her life, completely overshadowed by her younger sister. But she was also genuinely trying to understand how she'd gotten everything so wrong. "I'm sorry I never believed in you," she said through tears during our first real conversation post-revelation. "I was so used to being the successful one that I couldn't see your potential. I convinced myself that Derek was inherently more capable because he fit the profile of what I thought success looked like. Emma, you chose to believe a man you'd known for 2 years over a sister you'd known for 26 years. That wasn't about Derek's profile. That was about your fundamental assessment of my worth as a person. I know, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life." Emma's wedding was officially canceled 2 weeks later. Derek had sent a resignation letter from his position at Greenlife and a public apology admitting he'd borrowed heavily from others' ideas without proper attribution. He never contacted Emma directly about ending their engagement. She found out when the apology letter started trending on Twitter. "He didn't even have the courage to break up with me personally," Emma told me. I had to learn that my engagement was over by reading his public confession online. Dad called to apologize for years of dismissing my ambitions. Mom admitted she'd been wrong to compare me unfavorably to Derek. Extended family members who'd ignored me for years suddenly wanted to reconnect. Uncle Bob, who'd told me to pass the gravy when I announced my business plans, sent a LinkedIn connection request with a message about potential consulting opportunities. I accepted the connection and immediately blocked him. Ecosphere went public 6 months later, making me one of the youngest female CEOs of a billion-dollar company. The IPO was oversubscribed by 400%, and we raised $200 million for global expansion. Our market capitalization on opening day was $5.2 billion. Derek's former investors, the ones who dismissed me as a delusional ex-girlfriend, reached out hoping to get involved with Ecosphere. I politely declined every single one, making sure they understood exactly why they were being rejected. The success forced me to confront my own psychological patterns. I'd spent so long proving my worth to people who couldn't see it that I'd forgotten to value myself independently. Therapy helped me understand that their validation was never the real prize. Their dismissal had been the gift that motivated me to build something extraordinary. When Forbes named me to their 30 under 30 list, my first instinct was still to call my family for approval. Then I realized I didn't need it anymore. Their opinion of my worth had become irrelevant the moment I'd proven my worth to myself and the market. Success completely transformed my family dynamics. Instead of asking when I'd get my life together, relatives started asking for stock tips and business advice. The person they'd written off was now their most successful family member by several orders of magnitude. Emma eventually found her own path, launching a sustainable fashion company that used Ecosphere's supply chain tracking to build completely transparent clothing lines. When she needed Series A funding, she asked if I'd be an investor. I said yes, not as her sister doing her a favor, but as a businesswoman recognizing a solid opportunity. "This feels like the first time we've been partners instead of competitors," Emma told me after I'd led her funding round. "That's because it's the first time you've seen me as an equal instead of a cautionary tale." I used my wealth to establish the Mitchell Foundation for Women in Technology, providing grants and mentorship for female entrepreneurs whose ideas had been stolen or dismissed. We funded 200 startups in our first year. Derek applied for foundation funding through an intermediary, claiming he had a revolutionary new business concept. When his identity was discovered, the application was immediately rejected with a note, "We don't fund intellectual property thieves." 3 years after the wedding debacle, Derek requested a meeting. He wanted to apologize personally and ask if there was any way to repair the damage to his reputation and career. I agreed to meet him at the same coffee shop where Priya had first approached me. He looked older, broken in a way that money couldn't fix. His confidence was gone, replaced by the haunted expression of someone who'd learned that actions have permanent consequences. "Maya, I know this doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. What I did was unforgivable, and I've spent every day since your summit presentation understanding exactly how much damage I caused." His apology seemed genuine, but the consequences of his actions were permanent. "Derek, you didn't just steal my business idea. You stole my identity as a capable person. You convinced my own family that I was delusional and jealous while you built a career on my work. Then you had the audacity to date my sister while gaslighting me about my own capabilities." "I know. I destroyed everything good in my life because I was threatened by your talent and convinced myself that I deserved credit for your innovations." I studied his face, looking for traces of the arrogant man who'd told me I was too emotional for entrepreneurship. "Derek, do you understand that you could have been part of something extraordinary if you'd just been honest about my contributions? Instead, you chose theft and gaslighting." "I understand that now. But I was intimidated by how much smarter you were, and I convinced myself that taking credit for your work was just being strategic." "The real tragedy," I told him, "is that you were so threatened by my capabilities that you destroyed both our futures. You could have been my co-founder and shared in a $5 billion success. Instead, you're a business school case study in catastrophic hubris. Derek left that meeting understanding that some mistakes are too fundamental to ever be forgiven or forgotten. His name was permanently associated with intellectual property theft in the tech industry. No serious investor would ever trust him again. Today, I'm 32 years old, running a company that's fighting climate change while generating massive returns for investors. Ecosphere has prevented an estimated 100 million tons of carbon emissions through our platform. We employ over 5,000 people across 7 continents. I live in a penthouse that overlooks the city where my family once worried about my future. Last month, Derek's former company, now a subsidiary of Ecosphere, reported their highest quarterly profits ever using the technology Derek had been too limited to develop. The people who underestimate you are giving you the greatest gift possible, the motivation to prove them wrong on a scale they never imagined. My family's dismissal and Derek's theft didn't break me. They forged me into someone capable of building something extraordinary. When Time magazine named me to their most influential people list, the citation read, "Maya Mitchell proves that the best revenge is extraordinary success built on authentic innovation." But the real satisfaction wasn't in the external validation. It was in proving to myself that I'd been right all along. The ideas they'd dismissed were world-changing. The ambition they'd criticized was exactly what the world needed. The woman they'd underestimated was always capable of greatness. She just needed to stop seeking their permission to achieve it. At my TED Talk last year, I said, "The people who doubt you aren't your audience. Build for the people who need what you're creating, not for the people who can't imagine it exists." Success taught me that other people's inability to see your potential says nothing about your worth and everything about their limitations. The family who thought I'd never amount to anything, the man who stole my ideas, the society that systematically underestimates women in technology, they were all wrong, and their opinions had never mattered. Your worth isn't determined by their recognition. It's built by your persistence, your vision, and your refusal to accept their limitations as your own. The greatest revenge isn't just success. It's success so extraordinary that it redefines what's possible, while proving that their dismissal was the biggest mistake they'll ever make. Derek Chen thought he was stealing from a woman who wasn't smart enough to compete with him. Instead, he'd stolen from someone who was smart enough to build something so much better that his theft became the catalyst for his own destruction. And that, more than any apology or recognition, was worth $5 billion. Have you ever been underestimated by the people closest to you? Have you ever had someone steal credit for your work? How did you turn that betrayal into motivation? Share your story in the comments below, hit that like button if this resonated with you, and subscribe for more stories about turning rejection into rocket fuel. Remember, the people who doubt you today are often the same people who will claim they always believed in you when you succeed. But by then, their opinion won't matter anymore, because you'll have proven your worth to the only person whose opinion truly counts: yourself. Your biggest critics often become your most valuable motivation. Use their doubt as fuel, their dismissal as determination, and their limitations as proof that you're thinking bigger than they're capable of imagining. The best revenge isn't just living well, it's building something so extraordinary that their failure to see your potential becomes the most expensive mistake they'll ever make.